Police believe 4 people may have been involved in Friday's armed robbery of the New Lambton branch of the Greater Building Society. Staff were threatened with a pistol, the bandits fleeing with what police say was a substantial amount of money. The thieves used 2 stolen getaway cars. One was found in a nearby laneway, the other late Friday night at Raymond Terrace. Today that vehicle was in the holding yard at the local police station. It's been fingerprinted, but police are hoping someone may recognise it and help identify those responsible.
It's very important for our further inquiries.
The car may have been seen on the Pacific Highway in the Newcastle area, at Garden City, New Lambton or near Raymond Terrace.
This vehicle was recovered at 9 o'clock on Friday at the in Seahampton Road, Raymond Terrace, and at the time we believe there may have been a woman in the car.
The majority of kids we meet, it's the average kid, and potentially the average kid can get into strife through a poor decision, and if we can assist them making a right decision at the right time through education or whatever, well, we might be able to keep them on the right path. The majority of kids we meet, it's the average young people that we describe as hardcore criminals.
As part of a packed 2-day itinerary in Newcastle, Federal Treasurer Ralph Willis visited the latest honeysuckle Building Better Cities development, the recently completed conversion of the former Wickham School into inner-city accommodation.
Newcastle has done very well out of the Building Better Cities program, and I think in looking at what's been done, what's proposed to be done, that this has been a very productive use of resources.
Later at the Workers' Club, addressing Newcastle's business representatives, he spoke of the untapped potential of the Hunter and encouraged entrepreneurs to consider it as a viable investment proposition. More than 70 industry leaders made the most of the opportunity of voicing concerns, raising youth unemployment and a decline in the building industry as key issues. Mr Willis says a sign of the government's confidence in the Hunter is the fact that 12 Newcastle region projects have been approved for the development allowance. That means over the coming years, more than $3 billion will be spent on capital for the coal mining and steel making industries.
We clearly have a lot of investment which is either under construction or committed in the region, and that I think bodes well for the future of the Hunter.
Heather Stewart, NBN News. The sweeping greens of the infield area of Newcastle's Paceway are to receive a touch-up before the teams test their new turf, and $50,000 worth of lights need to be installed before night games become a reality. But as soon as that's done, there will be a trample of feet of a different kind and a new crowd visiting the headquarters of Newcastle Harness Racing Club, 12 months of the year. And the Harness Racing Association is more than happy with the arrangement, as it means 1,500 extra people a week will visit the Paceway, who might not formerly have known where it was located. And one of the fastest growing sports in the nation, touch football, gets one of the best grounds to play on in the country. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
It was an unfamiliar view of the city, Newcastle's landmark buildings bathed in light, their magnificent contours outlined by powerful beams creating an aura of mystery. But beneath them there was a hive of activity as people mingled, enjoying the moment. It's all aimed at capturing the best of Newcastle at night, drawing attention to the harbour and foreshore. A group of musicians led a procession from Customs House to the amphitheatre. For those less inclined, there was plenty of time to just sit and view the spectacle.
There's no such thing as a simple sausage anymore. There are many varieties of size, shape, colour and flavour. And Northern New South Wales butchers are always challenging the market with new samples to tantalise the taste buds. You wouldn't think it would take much to win the best sausage division, but the experts say there's a lot to it. Over 20 entrants from as far away as Inverell and down to the Central Coast laid out their best, and judges admit they were impressed.
There's certainly a lot that goes into making a good sausage. Apart from the ingredients, there's also how it's made and how it's tied. It certainly is an art form.
Newcastle meat retailers took out the Australian Tasty and 100% pork sausage titles, and Becky's Sausage Shop in Coffs Harbour boasted the top gourmet sausage.
The actual flavour, there were some really nice tasty sausages that had great flavour to them.
So nothing like a good Aussie barbecue sausage, you say?
Terrific, particularly this time of year. We're coming into the summer season, there's nothing like it.
The toughest challenge in the battle of the best snagger lies ahead. Finalists from 4 New South Wales regions will compete for the state titles early next year. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
It was an act which could have claimed his own life. In April, Senior Constable Ian Borton tried to rescue a diver trapped in an inlet pipe at BHP's Newcastle Steelworks. He'd never dived before, but his own safety didn't enter his mind. Instead, he pulled himself through the pipe and freed diver Stephen Lamb, who was trapped by a mesh grill. Mr. Lamb later died in John Hunter Hospital. Today, Senior Constable Borton's extreme courage was recognised in Goulburn, where Commissioner Tony Lauer presented him with the state's highest bravery award.
Not really a hero, but the rest of your squad, that's about it, You're there for the job, so that's what it's there for.
Senior Constable Borton was one of 6 officers to be presented with awards today. Commended for his actions, Sergeant Peter Flanagan of Inverell. In August at Gilgai, he was faced with an agitated man armed with a large piece of concrete. The man was eventually arrested after Sergeant Flanagan fired his revolver in self-defence. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It's a bold move by the Catholic Church, admitting it has made mistakes in the past.
We need to be upfront in making sure that the victims and their families are treated, offered the appropriate counselling and even therapy.
Newspaper ads have been placed across the Newcastle and Maitland areas calling on anyone who has suffered sexual abuse from a priest to phone in on a special toll-free line. Victims will be offered counselling and support by a group which is independent from the church. For Bishop Michael Malone, it's been a difficult time. He accepts that there have been problems and says he wants to address that.
People might see that all those employed by the church, whether they be priests or religious or lay people, would be seen to be tarred with that brush. And that's not the case at all, and I wish to assure people of that.
The toll-free number to call for help is 1800 620 900. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
While the driver was unhurt, a passenger in the vehicle suffered serious head injuries and was rushed to John Hunter Hospital. The car rolled after the driver lost control of the vehicle on Avoca Drive at Kincumber at around 11:30 last night. And a lucky escape this morning for a South Australian driver carrying a load of potatoes and onions. It's believed the vehicle left the New England Highway 3 kilometres north of Branxton and hit a drain.
Three of us gone. One from the port side.
Parents and students filed past the remains of the old schoolhouse, a centre point of their small community which was just about to undergo a $60,000 refit. Many had fought hard for the past few years to keep the school open and build on its facilities, which offer 40 students a specialised alternative to larger schools.
The school was just organising a working bee yesterday, and we had a lot of parents here to clean the old building out because renovations were going to start next week. And now this has happened, and it was such a shock. I got a phone call this morning to say the building had burnt down, and I didn't believe it.
The building was used as a library, kitchen and computer room. Luckily, books and equipment had been stored in a nearby shipping container prior to renovations. The Education Department will move in a demountable classroom, which should help see out the remainder of the school year.
We've still got our 2 classrooms, although we're going to be having to have a morning tea out in the playground with a jug.
The game was reduced to 43 overs apiece after rain interruptions, Central North scoring 6 for 159. Newcastle needed just 37 overs and lost only 3 wickets in the chase, making it the Northern New South Wales champion. They'll now play the winner of the South Coast and Central Divisions for the Diamond Country Cup. Meanwhile, Wallsend has broken a long drought to win its own 15 overs cricket competition. Stockton made 5 for 115 off its 15 overs, the locals reaching that target with an over to spare. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Newcastle entrepreneur Leslie Herbert Savage is charged with making false and misleading statements and with intent to obtain finance. He was arrested almost 3 weeks ago over letters sent to descendants of shareholders of the company that formerly owned almost 2/3 of Lake Macquarie's Greenpoint. In Newcastle local court today, his solicitor, Alistair Henskins, claimed a police media release had led to extensive media coverage of his client's arrest, and that this and media publications before the arrest would prejudice his client's trial. He also cited this as a reason he would ask for the case to be heard in Sydney. Magistrate Colin Elliott reminded the court that Mr Savage was innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. However, he ruled against the suppression on the grounds it was in the public's interest to have access to the information on the case. The case will be heard again on December 11.
When they come out.
The plan is to transform the foreshore off Merewether Street into a slick waterfront centre with markets, galleries, shops, perhaps a hotel and residential area. The restored railway workshops will be central to the design. Changes are also planned working back through to Civic Park.
It's a very large and vital area of the city and what we're terming now the new city heart.
The railway line stays as part of the plan, but Wharf Road will be realigned to make way for the development. With extensive landscaping for the civic area, it's hoped a link will be made from the park through to the foreshore.
We're really starting to move into the 21st century. We're beginning to change the face of the inner city of the central business district.
There's a $10 million price tag with the funding coming through the Honeysuckle project. Plans go on exhibition from next week, with the public encouraged to make comment on any possible changes.
It's not something that's just there for weekend visitations. It's something that's an extension of the city, the life of the city, and is incorporated into the character of the city and is very much a living organism.
Pending council approval, work on the project should begin within 4 months, with the total job expected to be completed in 3 years' time. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
When 16-year-old Gordana Kotevsky was apparently snatched from outside her aunt's home on November 24th last year, hearts around the state went out to her devastated parents. In November 1995, though the community has moved on, for the Kotevsky family, time and their grief have stood still.
I live with the pain every day. I heard her screaming, I heard her calling for my help, and I just have to live with that every day.
The Kotevskys say they'll never give up on Gordana and the other missing people of the Hunter until they have answers.
If I lose hope, I will lose my life, it'll be the end of me. So I have to keep hope and maybe a miracle will happen.
Despite a shortage of funding, a missing persons office set up by the family remains in operation through the generosity of its landlord. The Kotevskis say the Hunter region is desperate for services for the families of missing persons. Currently, there is no official support group or counselling service. The Kotevskis and their supporters will tonight return here to Powell Street, where Gordana's auntie first heard her screams 1 year ago. The family would like anyone willing to offer hope and encouragement to join them here for a prayer meeting at 7 p.m. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
The skies have threatened to disrupt training all week, but a new drainage system has ensured that no practice has been lost due to the weather.
It'd be an energy draining match because the surface is very, very soft, and we're used to playing on a much different type of surface, although this week the rain's been great because we've actually trained on the pitch, much to the chagrin of our groundsmen. But I wanted the guys to get used to playing under heavy conditions, and that's exactly what it's going to be like in Canberra.
The Breakers will field a near full-strength team, with captain David Lowe over a hamstring injury, although Andy Roberts is still out with shingles. Coach John Cosmina predicts a brutal game as the Breakers try to make it 2 wins in a row.
Well, in terms of the physical side of it, Marko Perenovic, he's a good player. He scored quite a few goals for Olympic a couple of years ago, and he's bagged a couple for the Cosmos so far this season. Mind you, he's bagged a few yellow cards as well. Marko never pulls out of a tackle.
Meanwhile, West Wallsend's Craig Anderson will be out to win the Shell Oil Shootout at Raymond Terrace on Sunday. The 17-year-old leads the motocross series going into the final round.
We turned up in Broadford in Melbourne 2 weeks ago, and I ended up with a first there. That helped me out a lot, and going into this round with 20 points in front, and hopefully I can take it out.
The track will also host the Pan Pacific Championships, with 4 international riders competing against Australia's best. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Every work has a message, coupled with mastery of technique and the polish of a final product. The result is an exhibition as diverse as it is unique.
This is the first time that the faculty has actually coordinated all their exhibitions together. So we have the design exhibitions and the visual artists exhibitions. So hopefully there'll be lots of things for everybody to see.
52 students have completed a Bachelor of Design degree this year. The task has not only been to perfect the medium, but also unleash individuality in a competitive lot.
It's important to be recognised by your peers, I suppose. It just gives you that confidence to keep working and just keep creating art.
From colourful ceramics to accomplished fibre art, whatever the choice of study, the output is astounding.
They've put an awful lot of hard work into developing their concepts and have very deep meanings in a lot of their work.
The Grind and Nemesis exhibitions open tonight at Newcastle University and run until late this month. Heather Stewart, NBN News.
Christian McCaw may have won the title, but it was Mitch Dawkins who conquered today's testing 1.5 metre surf at Newcastle's Dixon Park. The Nelson Bay surfer has only competed in a handful of the hot-butted events, but his win today left him in 4th place overall. In the juniors, Stockton's Steve Berlin made the most of the conditions to win the final against Nelson Bay's Greg Hubbard. But Berlin had to be content with 3rd overall, Nelson Bay's Luke Bartlett 1st, Hubbard 2nd. Meanwhile, the solid conditions provided a challenge for the region's junior surf lifesavers at Blacksmiths. Swansea Belmont once again dominated, easily winning the Cracker Junior Iron Person Challenge. Jace Nixon led the charge for Swansea Belmont with an impressive win in the under-12 boys. Alexandra Norrie taking out the under-12 girls for the Cooks Hill Club.
The bad intentions of this evil maestro will themselves be destroyed by the children of 10 schools at this Wednesday's spectacular event. Peace, Christmas, love and cheer will be the message to come out through several hours of dramatic entertainment at Carl Oval. In keeping with that theme, the show will feature a special song written by Year 12 student Scott Thomas entitled Sarajevo.
November snow lies across Sarajevo hills.
Sarajevo was the first song Scott ever wrote, but he's now in the process of producing an album made up entirely of original work. More than 5,000 people are expected to see Scott and his schoolmates dramatically open the festive season on Wednesday night. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
Police estimate more than 3,000 people attended the rave party at the Central Mangrove Mountain property near Gosford on Saturday night. Their concern was heightened when ecstasy containers were found strewn carelessly on the verge of the roadway. Motorists queued for hours to enter the site, raising police fears for road safety and sparking calls for future rave parties to be banned.
Our feeling on the Central Coast is we definitely don't want these functions on this in this district.
Officers say dance parties held on private properties are difficult to police. During the night they charged 150 people with traffic offences, 4 with driving under the influence and 1 person with illegal drug possession.
We have intelligence information. There were plainclothes police that went into the property, and from the information that they've supplied, there was a large quantity of drugs being distributed through the rave and dance party.
Heather Stewart, NBN News.
Scientists from all over the world are at Newcastle University this week, focusing on the use of computer and mathematical projections to study regional development and environmental change.
What may seem to be quite a technical conference is really dealing with issues at the heart of managing the world and the environment for the future.
Global warming is a major concern. New Zealand researcher John Leithwick predicting dramatic changes in the distribution of forest types as world temperatures creep up over the coming century. He says the forest gene pool is at risk unless additional areas are reserved for protection.
Given the very changing nature of the environment, we need to err on the conservative side in setting aside reserves that will give space not just for the current requirements of species, but perhaps for the longer term requirements.
At another Newcastle conference, meanwhile, Australian researchers have detailed a world first in radiation testing. Their project based on monitoring the safety of workers in plutonium reprocessing plants in Europe.
What we have done is we've developed an ultra-sensitive technique that allows us to measure the amount of plutonium in the general population and also in at-risk groups, something that hasn't been possible up until now.
Most cyclists killed on the road die of head injuries, and more than half are children. An initiative of the New South Wales Police Service is attempting to educate young riders before they get on the roads. Organised with the Department of Education, Sport and Recreation, a bicycle safety training track has been set up at Myuna Bay, west of Lake Macquarie.
These days you've got to know about cars and safety and road rules, and that's what we're trying to encourage the children here to do, is understand those and have safer bike rides.
Instructors cover basic road sense and rules, but there are tips for parents too, such as selecting a good safe bike and approved helmet.
And the helmet should be an approved Standards Association helmet with the 5 little ticks on the back.
With Christmas and a new bike just around the corner, the police urge parents to consider that children under 10 haven't developed road sense and should only ride in supervised safe areas.
The reason being the peripheral vision hasn't developed properly. Their understanding of the road rules and traffic signs is not good. And when they get into a dangerous situation, they often react in the worst possible way.